Hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent in stimulus, and there's not many new jobs to show for it. Now Democrats in Washington want to spend more money. Your next guest says D.C. has it all wrong, that we don't need to spend to create jobs. He has got some free ideas for us on how to get companies hiring again. Joining us now from Washington is James Shirk, Senior Policy Analyst of Labor Economics with the Heritage Foundation. James, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, well, you say all this money that we're spending is not creating good jobs. You've got a way to spend nothing and create good jobs. I don't buy it. What is it?
Well, take a look at what's happened with unemployment around the world. We're not the first nation to have high unemployment. Europe has had 8 to 10% unemployment for about the past 3 decades. And they've spent hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, and a much larger and bigger government, stimulus package after stimulus package in Japan. And the surprising thing is you find that all this spending doesn't wind up with a lower unemployment. It doesn't work. In fact, it's the opposite. The more the government spends, the higher the unemployment rate overall. Government spending doesn't help because it doesn't address the real problem. The problem with this downturn, although job losses and layoffs have gone up, the real problem, the fundamental problem, has been a large drop in hiring. But if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business owner, well, the fact that Washington is spending billions of dollars to bail out state and local governments, or is spending billions on construction, doesn't encourage you to start your business. So it doesn't address what's really going on in the economy.
So what are some of the solutions? What do we do then? I mean, how do we create jobs? Because the private sector is not creating them for whatever reason. We can debate that, but how do we create jobs?
Well, what you want to do is you want to give entrepreneurs and investors the confidence to go forward and reduce the barriers the government creates to wealth creation. Once you reduce those barriers, you'll have entrepreneurs investing more funds, starting up more projects, and then in order to do that, they're going to have to hire. So you can do things like pass tort reform, which reduces a major cost and risk facing businesses. Do something like that, and you'll have a lot more investors willing to put their money behind ventures. Get rid of the Davis-Bacon Act, which requires the government to basically hire 4 construction workers for the price of 5. So if you are going to be spending money, you might as well be leveraging your funds more effectively. Allow for oil drilling in the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge. There's probably close to 1 million barrels a day we could be getting out of there within 5 or 6 years, which means lower energy prices, which helps the economy, and it also means more jobs directly in that investment there. There are a wealth of things like this that we could do that promote investment, promote entrepreneurship, that aren't going to cost the taxpayers anything. In fact, some of them, like the oil drilling in Alaska, would actually, because of the revenues, bring in revenue for taxpayers. We can create jobs at no cost to the federal government.
Well, James, I'm going to give you credit for saying that, but you know, your segment is following up all this destruction and damage from BP in the Gulf of Mexico. We got people worried about their livelihoods. You know, there is a big anti-drilling movement that is growing, and they have picked, I mean, they don't have to make a case esoterically. They can say, look what's going on in the Gulf.
I'm not talking about the Outer Continental Shelf drilling. I'm talking about drilling. It's on land in Alaska. It's not overseas, and it can be done in a very environmentally responsible manner. And if there is a spill, I mean, it's much simpler to patch up a pipe that's on ground and clean up the oil there than it is something a mile or more under the water's ocean. So the environmental problems are much easier to handle in terms of drilling on the ground, and that's what I'm talking about.
You know, it's interesting. New York State is on the verge of basically shutting down, James. And if you look at just New York City, it faces a couple 100,000 open lawsuits at all times, right? People just tripping in the street and suing the city for, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars because they twisted their knee. Why don't we hear more about tort reform? Why isn't there more high-level, real debate in Washington about tort reform and capping damages to prevent frivolous lawsuits?
Because the trial lawyers are an extremely well-connected interest group. We spend about twice the share of our economy on torts and the legal system than do, say, European nations or Canada and Japan. We're a much more litigious society. And the lawyers kind of like it that way. It's a full employment act for lawyers, and with some of these contingency fees, let's say you can get a $1 billion punitive damage awards, and you're the trial lawyer. Well, you take a third of that as your contingency fee, and that's over $300 million. And so they give a lot of money They are an extremely well-connected interest group to prevent that sort of gravy train from being taken away from them. It's great for the lawyers, but it's not so great for the businesses and the entrepreneurs who are trying to create jobs, trying to move ahead in the economy, and then they get slapped with these lawsuits that have very little merit.
James Shirk, Senior Policy Analyst of Labor Economics with the Heritage Foundation. James, thank you for bringing your ideas to us. We'll look forward to seeing you again.